Hello there. My name is Frank Klesitz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vyral Marketing. Welcome to another Hangout interview, Vyral Marketing Hangout interview with one of our great clients, Bill. Almost lost your name there for a second. It's Bill, correct?
Yes. So far, so good,
I was
Frank.
like, wait a second, it's Bill.
Okay. That's right.
So Bill is a great real estate professional in Washington, D.C. And he's been in the industry for over 40 years, but started really kind of his real estate practice, really kind of selling real estate about 10 years ago. And about 90% of his business comes from his database. And he really focuses on one of the things we talk about at Vyral Marketing is attacking on a narrow front. When you're a real estate professional and you're not maybe one of the fortunate real estate professionals to, kind of get in early with some radio personalities or get in early, be able to buy online leads, where you can scale it very quickly. How do you compete against, let's say, mega agents, let's say, right, in the area that have lots of money and big teams and MSAs with mortgage professionals, et cetera. You really got to pick a niche and you have to dominate it. And that is good marketing advice no matter what industry that you're in, to attack on a narrow front. And that's something you've done very well, Bill. And we're going to go deeper into that. And if you'd like a copy of the marketing plan that Bill follows, you can go to our homepage, getvyral.com. This is the marketing plan that all of our clients follow to reconnect with your number one business asset. That's your database. It's your past clients. It's your centers of influence. It's even in Bill's case, homeowners that he's nurturing in a specific farm area that he's gotten permission from to stay in touch with, to position yourself as the expert, to attract business to you, to get people to call you to list their home if you're in real estate. So in today's interview, you're going to hear Bill's story of kind of how he got started with his real estate team, some of the challenges he dealt with, kind of how he heard about viral marketing, why he decided to start publishing educational videos, the challenges with that. We're going to talk about, show you some examples of what he's doing, so you can model that too if you're looking to get more listings and get more business by building a database, building relationships, having a relationship building strategy. So Bill, are you ready to lay down some good knowledge for our audience today, my friend?
Yeah, let's go, Frank.
Cool, man. So 10 years ago, you decided to start selling real estate. Now that was in Washington, D.C., is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. I've been in the business for a long time, Frank, but primarily other than when I first got started. When I first got started, I was just selling houses in the summer because I could make more money than work in construction. So I actually never thought I'd stay in real estate, and here 40 some years later, I'm unemployable and still here. But so I'd owned a couple of companies, I've run companies, and my wife, who really is the face of our business, had been very successful. We had a son, she retired, and our son was getting older. She was sort of getting the itch to get back into the business. And so we decided to launch a brand new real estate business. So while we both had a lot of experience, this was a startup business about 10 years ago.
Okay. And you're really focusing on some pretty high-end homes, just so we give people an idea here in DC. I mean, your average price point, maybe not 10 years ago, but at least now is $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, houses in our marketplace, the things that are lower than $1 million, there are very few houses lower than $1 million in our marketplace. And most of the properties that we handle that are under $1 million are probably condominiums. Although there are condominiums in our marketplace that are $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. That's not necessarily the norm. But so our average, is around $1 million or so. Certainly the median is $1 million.
And last year you sold 40 homes last year.
Yeah, 40 something, I believe.
Yeah, with about 1.5 million GCI. That's pretty good, man. That's great. Good for you. So let's talk about kind of how you maybe, got into the business.
Sure.
How do you generate business? How did you start generate business?
Okay.
Let's talk about how that has morphed in today, how you generate business.
Sure.
So how did you start getting in? And let's talk about how that morphed and how you generate business now.
The first thing is what I've always taught people is to farm geographically. It's one of the few things that seems that, and I've been in the business a long time, that works every time if you work it. And so my wife had been very successful doing that. And so when we started the business, we made a decision. Okay, we're going to target a market. We're going to target a market that happened to be where we lived also. It didn't have to be, but that happened to be the case. In her previous life, she'd targeted a market where she didn't live, and everybody in the neighborhood thought she lived there because she was so active there. You know, she looked like people thought she was the mayor. But we targeted a very specific market. You know, we really decided to, you know, we knew we could not afford to be Coca-Cola to Washington, D.C., but we did have the resources to be Coca-Cola in Cleveland Park and the surrounding neighborhoods.
I love it. That's
okay,
great.
so that's so, you know, our goal is leverage. You know, it's time and money, and I want to get the best return we possibly can. And we frequently get the question, well, why do you limit yourself? And I said, well, that's why. I want to make more dollars per hour and get a better return on the money we invest. And the only way you can do that is by that focus. That same thing you talked about earlier. And so we just made a very conscious decision.
That's a pearl of wisdom. Let me go back and let me ask you, what's your definition of geographic farming? Jay Abraham has a great phrase, and it's really two words, and it's sort of preemptive preeminence. And, you know, we've positioned Marjorie as Cleveland Park's favorite agent, okay? And we don't say number one. She's the favorite because more people hire her than anybody else. So we're not bragging about number one. We're talking about we're the neighborhood favorite. We're the go-to, you know, she's the go-to person in that neighborhood. So when we're targeting that marketplace, in our particular case, it was probably easier because we lived there. Our son went to school there. We played baseball there. I coached kids there. You know, we can't go out to dinner and not bump into friends and clients. If it's a sidewalk cafe, you know, we'll probably stop 4 times in the middle of the meal by somebody. So just everything we do is involved in that community. Marjorie's very active in a couple of charities, and they're all community-based. It's very just sort of incestuous, I guess. I'm going to share my screen here for the audience. Okay. I want you guys to see how niche this area is. So here we have DC, right?
Yep.
And this is Cleveland Park, is that correct?
Yeah, if you sort of go to the National Cathedral, which you're pretty close to, a little bit to the left. Yeah, Cleveland Park, that's it. And then we take some surrounding areas. But that was where we started. That was Cleveland Park and North Cleveland Park. When we started, that was it. And we started it quite simply with direct mail.
So you decided of all the fronts you could attack on, you wanted to go after this Cleveland Park area. Any reason other than the fact it lucked out to be the area you lived in?
Yeah, a couple of things.
All the areas here? I mean, you have a big area. Let's just put that in perspective here.
Metro area. Yeah, see, the Potomac River, we don't cross it. We've got a lead in Virginia. We pick up the phone and call somebody and refer it.
Yeah.
We're very focused in where we do business. We may go stray a little bit. I mean, I'm only half joking when I say if Marjorie can't walk to it, she refers it.
Okay, I like it.
Okay, so some of it
so you like the idea of you were just going to farm your neighborhood you lived in.
We live our life in about a 1 or 2 mile circle, except when we travel, and that's where we shop, eat, live, play, whatever we do. But Cleveland Park, my wife had been in the business. Marjorie had been in the business a long time, and she'd when she first was in the business, started with a very low price property. She was brand new. She was in it, and probably back then, there were $40-some thousand, and she was making, probably $500 a deal. And after a while, realized, well, there's no future in that because those people are never going to be able to leave. And so, yeah, we were looking for a market. It didn't have to be the highest market. As a matter of fact, kind of the sweet spot in Washington, D.C. is probably up to about maybe $2 million. When you start getting into the ranges above that, it's not as quick a market. There are more properties sticking on the market.
So you pick this niche area. Give me an idea. What's the turnover in this area, and how many homes are there?
Yeah, probably in that particular. I mean, we farm about 5,000.
5,000 homes you direct mail at the time.
Yeah, we direct mail to 5,000. But the turnover rate is not, if you looked at just the turnover rate on a national basis, most people would look for something higher. But we're seeing, we may only have 4 or 5% a year. However, with an average price of about $1 million,
you only got to do a handful of deals.
Mitigates that low. Right. It sort of mitigates that lower thing.
I love how you're not driving all over DC. That'd be a lot of work.
Well, yeah, it's leverage.
Yeah.
And as I said, we're on occasion, based on a personal relationship, we may we'll stretch a little bit far. But at some point, as I said, we'll tell the people, look, you're better off having somebody else handle it. But God, my daughter lives in Frederick. She actually works for us, and we told her to get somebody up there to do it.
Bill, if somebody stopped watching this right now, I think they could take away a huge nugget, which is picking a target market.
Yeah.
So many people will take buyer leads, excuse me, all over the area, running around like a crazy person. Sounds to me like you're focused on listings at a good price point, close to where you live.
Yep.
And dominating a very small area in an extremely competitive market.
Yeah.
DC, right?
Yeah.
And yes, you've been in the business for a long time. 44 years you've been in the business. Started real estate team only 10. It's not too terribly long. Let's go a little bit deeper before we get into growing your database and making the videos.
Okay.
You said earlier something profound about geographic farming always works.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a pearl of wisdom after your length of time in real estate of seeing fads come and go with different styles of business. Tell me more about why geographic farming works, of picking a target market of an area and being in front of them all the time. Why is that the best strategy of all of the things you've seen out there?
It could be, there could be other strategies, but it's the one that I've been able to most consistently teach. Okay. If somebody landed here from Mars, okay, and they will apply themselves and do things step by step consistently, okay, they will build a business in a neighborhood. And I don't really care too much about who's already there as a competitor. Okay, because frequently an agent will come to me and say, Bill, you had success farming. I'm thinking of farming a neighborhood. And I said, well, what neighborhood? And they say, well, I was thinking about such and such, but so-and-so does all of the business in there. And I said, okay, all of the business, right? And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, okay, I want you to go to, this will take you about 3 minutes. And I want you to go to the multiple listing service. And I want you to run all the listings sold in that neighborhood in a 12-month window. Okay. And I bet you that this person who sells everything is probably doing no more than 10% of the business. And 9 out of 10 times, that will be the answer. The person that is perceived as the neighborhood expert, the person doing all of the business, is probably only doing 10% of the business. Every once in a while, the answer might be 12 or 13, but about 90+% is 10%. Now, the good news about that is that means there's lots of territory open within that marketplace. And number two, look how little you have to do to be perceived as the person doing all the business. I mean, that's huge leverage. I mean, I've had people take over a neighborhood with one listing, and that's where it always starts. It's a race. How do I get the first one? Because once I've got the first one, then I can leverage that through my marketing to be perceived as the expert, particularly in the absence of maybe nobody else doing that.
That's great, Bill. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So you started off with direct mail.
Yep.
So you probably had some money. So let's just talk about, you start with 5,000. That was the area.
Yeah, we probably started with 1,000.
Okay, you start with 1,000. So tell me, we're going to work our way to Vyral, but let's start with the foundation of what you started with, work on the Vyral. So where did you get the names? How did you choose your names from the list company? What did you send them? How often did you mail? What did it cost? Why don't you tell us the direct mail platform that you did?
Yeah, we started with the first thing is we knew you have to do it consistently. So you've got to have the money and the mindset to do it. And to me, consistently, particularly in startup, is a minimum of twice a month. Okay, once a month isn't good enough. Once a quarter isn't good enough. And probably I'd front load it, and I might do it about 3 times the first couple of months to try to get some momentum going. So, I frequently tell people, look, if you can't afford to do 2,000 the right way, then do 1,000 the right way. Cut it in half and do the 1,000 the right way. So we did 2 things. We sort of got 3 signature marketing pieces. We actually did create a personal brochure for Marjorie. And it wasn't about honors and recognitions. It was personal. A lot of our marketing is about our lives. Nobody on this planet identifies with a real estate agent except another real estate agent. but they can identify with a mom. They can identify with somebody who moved from Pennsylvania. They can identify with somebody who had to wait tables, or whatever else it is. They can identify with somebody, whose kid plays baseball. So we don't hide that from people. We're people. And, in the old days, it used to be if someone called and you weren't in the office, it was never tell them I'm taking a day off. Never tell them I'm playing with my kids. Tell them I'm on another appointment. Well, you know what? We're people. It's okay to have a life. I mean, part of our business is based on when Marjorie was first in the business, she had no money. She'd moved here from another town. She was starving, so she just had to run as fast as she could. Okay, and she built a business, a very successful business back in the 80s, but she worked 100 hours a week. So when she retired to have our son and to take care of her mother, she thought she'd never come back. She was burned out. She'd had it. She threw away her trophies. She gave away her lock boxes. And if we'd been smart enough, we would have built a system to do this, but she referred everyone who called her to another agent. And it's interesting, she built a successful enough business that every single person that she referred to another agent actually hired that agent. Now, we were too dumb to figure out a platform to perpetuate that. So we really were starting again from scratch. But I totally forgot the question you asked me. Yeah, but get it back.
Well, it's important. You started with your farming by telling
right.
personal stories about you and your life. It wasn't necessarily about real estate.
Right. It was, the first thing was the brochure talked about the life. We just rewrote it. And it's more kind of Marjorie's story is really what it is. And then there's some little real estate stuff involved in it. But it's really her story. So that was one of the first direct mail pieces.
What's the two other pieces?
Okay. The other two is we did what was simple. Postcards are simple. I mean, in the old days, they weren't even pretty. They were black and white, and you hand wrote them usually and stuck labels on them and stamps and whatever. But we started with postcards. That's something that is the cheapest thing you can do, and it's the easiest thing you can do. So that's why we started. What are the problems? Money and the time to do it consistently. So we just wanted to be cranking them out. They can be really simple.
So you were going out 3 times a month.
Yeah, two or three to start. We wanted the first.
What were the postcards? What was the message in the postcard?
The postcard could be when we were brand new and we just started again, we didn't have a new listing to promote. So it might be, here's what's going on in the neighborhood. Here's the last 12 sales. It could be, it's not rocket science. And the first listing we got, and I don't remember how many, within maybe a month or two of the kickoff of our farming, Marjorie got a phone call, and it was somebody who was handling an estate. And the reason he called her was because when he'd gone to the vacant house, he was from out of town. He'd gone to the vacant house, and there was all kinds of mail on the floor by the front door. And he picked it up, and he called the agents who'd sent him the most postcards.
Hey.
Okay, so why does it work? Well, I'm not sure why, but it works. Okay, and from there, okay, that's fine. Now we can take that, and now we've got, we can go around the neighborhood and tell people you've got it. Your sign goes up. Yep. We sold it very quickly. We sold it at a time of year where everybody thinks nobody buys a house. It went on the market like between Christmas and New Year's, and we sold it right away for like $100,000 above the price. But then we can leverage that because we're having open houses. We're inviting the neighbors.
And again, there's a synergistic effect of all this being in the same area.
Right.
People are driving by, seeing the listing signs, seeing your signs everywhere, getting your direct mail.
Right. So there, you really want to pour the gasoline on then, okay? Because you want to get the next one as fast as you can. Okay, so it's like, people talk about radio advertising. Well, you don't advertise once a week. You just, blast it for however many days or time period you can blast it. So that's what we did. And then we got the next one, then the next one, then the next one. And, it keeps going on from there. But so the direct mail was part of it, but some of it was as simple as, and this was pretty early in the game for Marjorie, probably about the same time, but it didn't turn into business right away. In the summer, we have one of the biggest listservs in the country. I think it's almost 20,000 people. And somebody had tickets to the baseball game, to the Nationals baseball game. Well, we've got a young son who at that time was going to be pitcher, and he's now a senior at Emory University and pitches for them. We said, let's go to a baseball game. So Marjorie calls up the person. He says, yeah, come, I live over here, which happened to be in the neighborhood, to pick up the tickets. She went over to pick up the tickets. And while she was there, she said, by the way, I'm a real estate agent if you ever need any help. And handed him her brochure. And he said, well, as a matter of fact, my wife and I are looking. I think that afternoon she showed him a house. Now, it didn't happen quite that quickly, but within a number of months, he bought a house, almost $6 million house from us. Okay, that was from picking up baseball tickets. And then once he remodeled that, then we sold the house he was living in for close to $2 million. And, you know, that just a simple thing. But it was that community involvement.
So you pick a niche market.
Right.
We start consistently communicating with that niche market using the technology available to you at the time, which is direct mail.
Right.
Let's talk about now transitioning to Vyral and how you heard about us and why in the world you decided to add this as a strategy too, on top of what you're currently doing.
Yeah. A couple of things. We were using email, and actually pretty effectively in that whenever we did business, you know, people knew we got a new listing. It's going to be open this Sunday. Oh, we just sold it. Whatever else it was. So we were doing a good bit of that. And you know, as the business has evolved, and pretty quickly, you know, most of our requests to do business actually are not phone calls; they're emails. Frequently, Marjorie will get a phone call from somebody that maybe she met at an open house, and she doesn't even know who they are, even though we've been communicating with them. And they'll say, you know, I met you, or I've seen you at 20 of your open houses, or whatever it is over the years. And we just saw a house we want to buy, and we want you to represent us. So, you know, that isn't bad. But what we did right ahead of Vyral, one, Marjorie did a TV interview that was recorded, so we would use that maybe as an intro to a client. We'd post it on our webpage, that sort of thing. And then we came up with something else right before Vyral. And I'm taking a while to get there, but it just sort of leads me to where I think you want me to go, Frank. And we came up with another idea. And anybody who's been in this business, who's ever had a listing, has probably had a seller who wants to intrude on the buyer. When someone shows up, they want to be there. They want to greet them at the door. They want to walk them through the house and show them everything about the house that the buyer probably doesn't really care about. Or if they're not as outgoing as that, they'll trail around like a puppy dog, and all the buyer wants to do is get out of the house. So I said, well, that's a problem. So we came up with using video to allow a seller to do a guided tour through their house. And then we could tell them to get the hell out, because the buyer could always look at the tour. And they could tell them, I didn't want to tell them what they wanted me to tell them. You can walk through. And our business in working with our sellers is very story-based. Just like we use our lives, when we're selling a property, we're asking the seller who went through buying it. How did they find it? What have they enjoyed about it? And, you know, we get the stories about the weddings in the backyard. And we had one where the story was, well, you know, I was so excited when I bought the house because we were right around the corner from Starbucks, so I threw away my coffee maker. So we put that in our brochure, in our marketing. Guess what the buyer of the house said? You know, it's really going to be cool. I'm going to throw away my coffee pot too. I mean, does that sound silly or what? But
I like how you get the seller involved in the marketing of the home.
Yeah.
We're almost like the seller writes the property description in many ways, which is what you're kind of doing in the video. That's key.
Right. So we took that and we put it in the video. So it wasn't just to walk around and talk about the rooms. We talked about what happened in those rooms. And we found it resonated with the buyers. So we wanted them to translate that story. This was not a slick production. My wife's assistant took an iPad, and Marjorie would be there, and she'd introduce the seller, and then Marjorie would step away, and the seller would walk through the house. And they would talk about Yeah, they might talk about some of the, we expanded this family room so we could do this or whatever, but a lot of it was the stories about living there. And the first time we did it, we had a house that we'd put on the market. It was open Saturday, and we'd just done one, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So Marjorie was there with a laptop or an iPad or something, and she had the video on. People who came to the open house on Saturday, instead of walking around the house, are watching the video in the kitchen. They're then, the husband came in, but the wife was out doing something. They would then email that to the wife. Hey, honey, I think you should come take a look at this. Walk through it with me. Now that house we put on the market, I think, for $799. We got an offer for $870 that night, so we could sell it and cancel the open house that was scheduled for Sunday.
Not bad for coming in higher.
Yeah. So, but that's how we used it. So our business was engaged with the story, and however we came across you, which is probably you emailed us. I probably got emails. I saw you somehow we connected. So we liked the concept of the video. We know we'd used it a little bit, but we like the idea of, okay, how else can we use it? How else can we deploy it? A lot of the content we've done over the years before video was how-to stuff for sellers. It's tips and that sort of thing. So we were already in that mode. So it was kind of a perfect storm connecting with you all, because one of the things that we do is Marjorie's very good at, or I'm good at reminding her to do it, because she usually forgets the story. So before we go on with the tips, she goes, and what story is that? And I have to repeat it because it sort of has gone out of her head. But it's not just an isolated tip. We usually, we call it what's working now, because it could have happened yesterday when Marjorie does one of the videos with you all. And it's, okay, here's what happened with John and George, okay, and here's the lesson of it, the story, the tip, or whatever. So it's not just, okay, these are the 3 things to do. It's usually, okay, here's a good strategy. Let me explain how it worked just the other day. And so it enabled us to sort of take that sort of story concept and get it out in more ways through video. And what we found is, because you all do a great job of giving us the feedback and the tracking numbers, we get a lot of people open it, a pretty good number of people click. I don't know all the numbers, and you guys know what the numbers mean, not us, but frequently we'll have 20% of the people open it. We'll have maybe 2% click, which you all tell me are pretty good numbers. But we like that aspect of it, was being able to tell a story. And one of the other things that's happened is I was talking to Jade just the other day, who handles our account. And she said, Bill, Marjorie's always sitting at her desk and doing the video. We've got some clients who are starting to do something different. They're doing it at different locations, changing it up a little bit. And so I said, yeah, okay, well, that's a good idea. And I thought, well, okay, but, we sort of got it. One of the things we try to do is we've got to sort of systematize it. We've got a schedule. Marjorie's doing it. And, okay, it sort of gets structured so we get it done. So this creates a little bit of a wrinkle. And I thought, what would be a good idea? Let's do it. We were, Marjorie welcomes them to, here's this, thanks for joining me for this week's edition of What's Working Now. We're recording, live at such and such a street that I've just put on the market. So she's starting the recording of her tip in front of a new listing. This is not to do a listing, but she'll say, come on in, let me go over it. She'll produce the same thing she produced at her desk, but now we're in somebody's house. So it's a listing we've just put on the market. And at the end of it, one of the calls to action will be, if you'd like to take a look around more, here, click, here's the seller will walk you through. Or if the seller didn't do that, because they are not always comfortable doing that, we've got a virtual tour. So now we've got it. We're giving a tip. We're giving our seller more exposure in the marketplace. And we're changing it up. So thank you, Jade, for that idea. Wonderful. So we just the other day where she just did one, I guess yesterday actually, that you all have up there working on for Jade to get edited for us. So we'll see how that one goes.
Got it. I'm just taking my notes.
Okay.
I love the niche market. I love the high price point. I love how you live close to the area. I love your focus on listings. I love how you started with the foundation of direct mail of 2 to 3 times a month, and whatever you could afford, you just make that list smaller. So it's only 100 people a month. That's what you start with, 2 to 3 times a month.
Right.
I love the personal connection, the personal stories. And I see a storytelling element to a lot of your content, which is like the most advanced form of content creation there is when you tell a story of something. That's what resonates the most with humans.
Right.
That's how knowledge has been shared before people could read.
Yeah.
You know? Seller self-tour, love that. Love the story of what's working now. Here's this situation I was presented. Here's how we achieved that. Let me tell you the story of what we implemented, right?
Yep.
As opposed to just giving a hard tip. You conceal the hard tip in the element of a story,
right?
Which is great. So tell me about some of your fears and concerns signing up for viral marketing. Let's talk about.
Yeah. One other thing before we go there, Frank, because you know there were 3 things. Number one, the video is terrific, but what people may not think of is it is an amazing resource to repurpose. Okay, when we do a video, okay, we use it everywhere. Okay, when we do a postcard, Frank, okay, one of the panels is highlights of what's working now. Okay, in a URL to go to it.
Let me see your postcards. Hold it up.
So there's one. On one side, it's a bunch of sales.
Here, hold it up. Hold it up right to the camera.
Right there. Is that good?
Let it focus. Pull it back a little bit.
Okay. Tell me where it's good.
Yeah, right there.
Okay, so this is not the what's working now panel, but then we flip it over, and the whole of this side, which is the mailing panel, which
hold it a little higher for me, Bill.
Which is the first thing they see. It's all about what's working now.
Real estate video blog. Look at that.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Compliments of viral marketing design.
Good.
But so we repurpose it. One of the other things that we do is the third sort of signature marketing piece is a newsletter. Well, guess what? Every month I have at least 1 or 2 articles I don't have to write. Okay, we just use the video blog that was produced that's also put on our website and all the other areas you use it. So you all do a great job getting that video out to the planet. But when we go to print, once a month, we have a featured article, advertorial in the local community newspaper, again, focused.
And the content from your video blog is for that?
That's it. Frequently, that's the article. I don't have to write it.
We got to tell our writers that they're
I don't have to write it. Right. I don't have to write it. So I don't have to write an article in the newsletter. I don't have to write an article in the community paper. Okay. It's something else that's, we also use it. I mentioned our listserv, which has about almost 20,000 people. Twice a month. We advertise in it twice a week. So 2 of those are video blogs. You know, we use it there. So that's part of what we do is, you know, if I've got a good piece of content, even if it's not digital, our newsletter now is digital, and it's our most actually powerful piece. But now that it's digital, when we focus, you know, when we focus on, I don't know if you can see it.
What's this?
What's working now. This is our newsletter with this top panel is the what's working now. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Well, now that it's digital, they can click the link and see it from our newsletter. So we mailed up
can you hold up that whole thing? And I want to see that. Who is that mailed to? How many people does that go to? And what does it cost?
5,000 or 6,000 people. It costs about $1 a piece.
My goodness. No wonder you're getting deals. That would do it.
Now the front page is very personal. It's actually the only thing I write. Everything else gets done for us. One is the front page is something about business, but also our life. This was when we were up in New York with Christie's. We're standing in a $70 million penthouse overlooking the United Nations. But part of the story was, it says, on the whole, I'd rather be in Appleton. Well, that's because our son plays baseball, and his first 2 years, they made it to the College World Series. This year, the reason we were on that trip was they didn't make it, and that's why we'd rather be in Appleton. But this is usually something, there's some connection. Everybody 5,000 people know our son plays baseball.
Who does who does the layout for that? You just have a graphic designer?
Yeah, we have a template, and then it's Discover Publications produces it for us, but it's basically a template. So it's.
Let me see the full spread on the inside. Let me see the back.
Okay. The inside. Thanks, the inside has. This is we feature one of Marjorie's charities. I forget which one this is. Once a month, Marjorie hosts a lunch for one of the villages. It's a concept that's sort of sprouted up around the country of helping people age in place. Mm-hmm. So this was one of their recent lunches. We did, I think, the one that's just getting ready to come out. Amazon has thrown down $1 million challenge to raise funds for her Friendship Place, which helps the homeless here in the DC metropolitan area. So this panel is always dedicated to one of her charities. This one typically is Vyral. On the back, we do something as exciting as a bunch of sales, but people still like it.
Oh yeah, so, and that goes out once a month to about 5,000 people.
Yeah. This one's a testimonial. This bottom is usually a testimonial. So, but what we have, here's a good story for you. We were in Atlanta for one of my son's baseball games, and the game was over, and we were back to the Emory Conference Center. And one other thing about our business, it's not just our business. From Valentine's Day to Memorial Day, which is probably the busiest real estate market of the year, okay, we're out of town 50% of the time watching our son play baseball. And it's also our busiest time of year. So, we've built the business so we can live our life the way we want to. But anyway, so we're in Atlanta, the game's over, and Marjorie gets a phone call. And the woman said, Marjorie, I want your help. We need to sell a place and buy another place. And I knew you'd probably be in Atlanta this weekend watching baseball. So I went online to the Emory baseball schedule. And I looked at the schedule and figured the game would be over by now. So that's why I'm calling you so late. I hope you don't mind. So we came back to town. Marjorie listed their place, sold it, and then sold them another place. But they knew that because, we don't pretend we're not people.
Wow. There's so much knowledge here when it comes to the way you think of publishing content to position yourself as an expert with a niche audience, and then taking that content and spinning it through multiple media. You mentioned Jay Abraham.
Yeah.
We probably are cut from the same cloth in many ways, the people we've studied.
Right.
Tell me about how this philosophy and approach to your business came about, because this is very different than, well, I didn't ask you this question.
Okay.
How many prospecting calls do you guys make a day, let's say?
Hardly ever. Hardly ever. Hardly ever.
It's okay. You're making money.
But let me say
goal is to not have to. You could.
But Marjorie, when she was first in the business, made millions of prospecting calls. But we've, she's so engaged with the community. For instance, every time we'll consult with some of your people and talk about, well, what are the calls you're making? And we say, you know what? We really don't do it too much. We are starting to pay more attention to who's watching and is there a touch we should make with that person. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know how great our content is, but I think our email list, which is about 11 or 1,200 people, there are people who actually we know and who know us, and that probably is why they pay attention to it. But we're starting to pay a little bit more attention to, okay, who's opening something? And somebody we just did some business with, Marjorie was looking at their report and she said, oh God. She was sort of surprised that this person was looking at it because we just sold the house for them and we just sold the house to them. Mm-hmm. And it kind of struck her. Well, within a week or two, and we don't know that this is exactly why, but probably had something to do with it. We got a referral from them for somebody who wanted to buy a, $1 million or $2 million house that they'd actually already seen, but they wanted to hire us to represent them.
So I want to show you here so let's talk about this kind of Mets and haven't Mets. Your haven't met farmers about 5,000.
Right.
And the people you've met, your email database, let's say the people that you know or you've talked to, or they're a high quality nurture, you have about 1,200. This is not a giant database here by any means, like 100,000 people. And you're dominating an area and you're having a pretty high quality of life. I'm assuming you're loving what you do, sitting down, creating that newsletter and
fun.
Happy and getting fulfilled. want to go back to this question now that I know you started with calls, but and not in a very long period of time, have been able to build up a business where you're involved in the community where business comes to you. Where did your philosophy come from for this specific approach to business? Who did you study to learn about this approach? Because this is a unique approach, Bill.
No.
Most people don't approach their business this way.
Well, years ago, I was talking to the owner of a company here in town. And we were talking about opening an office. And he asked me a question, and he said, I noticed you don't have a GRI or an XYZ or an ABC after your name. You're not taking any of these you don't have any of these professional designations. And I said, well, you're right, I don't. But I read a lot, and I try to learn a lot from people who are not in the real estate business. Because pretty much all business is the same, but I'm looking for something different. When I would bring a new agent in, I'd pick their brain about what they used to do in their old business and see, can we apply it? Maybe it was to help them directly, but I steal shamelessly good ideas. So I don't know if there was any one person. I've probably seen in person, watched videos, read books of almost every real estate trainer that in the last 40 years. I've, studied people like Jay Abraham and other, back David Ogilvy, reading that stuff. So, I kind of look at everything every day. I listen to you. Oh,
I'm here.
Okay, something just came up on my computer screen. I want to get rid of it because it's blocking you out, Frank, and I don't want to miss your face. So I'm always learning. You said something to me in probably a conversation, and we talked about the training business we're doing, and I said, I had 400 people register for it, which is the first time I'd ever done something. That sounds pretty good. And you said, yeah, but what results did you get? And I said, that was the right mentality to have, because now I need to look, okay, how do I help those people get results? Not just they showed up, that makes me feel good, probably good for the ego, but okay, can I really help them? But getting back to who it was, probably I never farmed before as an agent. And I had my father's partner's son came into the business, and he decided to farm a neighborhood. And he was going to do it with the newsletter. And I told him, well, if you're going to do it, make sure you're ready to do it all the time. Okay, that's all. He wrote a really good newsletter, one of the best I've ever seen. And was really involved in that community, going through stuff. I said, because once you start it, people are going to expect it. And so, I watched him do it. My father and I sold our company. I went to run another company. And that company was very focused on farming. Okay, everybody in that company farmed. And this was back in the early 80s. When I got there, the company had just lost 75% of their production to go start a new company. Everybody in the average experience in that office was about 1.5 years. I think only one person had been in the business longer than 2 years. He'd probably been at 10, and everybody else had been in it 0 to 18 months. But everyone farmed, and in a market where rates went to 18 and 20%. Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Okay. Well, this was a group of pretty new agents. And back then, which was, I don't know, what's that, 30 some years ago, and one of the worst conditions in history, that sales force averaged $50,000 in income, and their average sale was like $90,000. Now, back in those days, I don't know, that's probably $250,000. If you look at where those prices would be right now. 2 people, I think, made 30, and the only 2 people who made 30 were brand new rookies. I think the best was 100,000, which is probably like about $1 million today. So the average was about 50,000, and every single one of them, it was the same thing. It happened to be, all we sold were condominiums and cooperatives. So every single one of them, they targeted a building or buildings, and they farmed. Okay, and every single one of them had success, whether they had experience or they were brand new and were totally clueless, except they just did what you told them to do.
And it goes back to the core principles of marketing and picking a target market.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get spread too wide, too thin, and you're able to go all in.
Yeah.
So it's very good, man. Thank you for your insights on this so far. So let's talk about return on investment a little
Okay.
bit, because in order to have this philosophy of you're going to pick this niche area and you're basically going to spend as much as you can afford or a certain percentage of whatever you bring in the business to be in the front of the target market as much as you can be. How do you track ROI when you're sending out emails and you're sending out your newsletter and they get the postcards, they see you at an event? You mentioned here that it was very difficult to track that to a specific thing. And I think you have to sever that link when you go to the strategy a bit, or maybe you don't. Well, let me hear your thoughts on that. How do you know?
I mean, it's hard. Sometimes I know, okay, because I can track it. But here's an interesting one. We got Marjorie got a call and for somebody who wanted to sell their property. And she always asks, how'd you happen to hear about me? And their answer was, well, we just see you around. Now, this isn't in our core marketing area. It's a little bit on the fringe of it. And we were testing another postcard program. And it just happened when she told me the address, I said, they just got a postcard that came from here. But they didn't even remember it. They just knew of a presence. But I know within a week of that call, they'd received a specific postcard. And they even, when Marjorie asked them about why they called, they recited the message that was on the postcard. Because the message was something like, even if you're not thinking of selling right now, that sort of thing. So when Marjorie met with them, they said, yeah, Marjorie, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you was because, we're not quite sure what we're going to do. But they didn't recall they read it off a postcard. So I know where that came from. But you're right. It's very hard. The way we do our business, it's so focused, so concentrated, and we don't do just one thing. It's direct mail. It's physical presence. It's being involved in the community. It's, bumping into people. That it's very hard to track because somebody might have seen Marjorie at 30 open houses over the last 3 years. Okay. They might have gotten God knows how many postcards and how many emails and watched so many of the What's Working Now videos. Well, how do you separate that? So I've sort of gotten to where I try to pay attention to where things are because that may give me a clue of what else to do and what to do more of, but very hard to look and say, okay, this particular program has given me this return on investment. So I kind of look more at, I will test things to see if I can track it. I tried something recently with a local publication, okay? Well, I know I got nothing directly from it. So after a 2-month test, we quit. That was it. That was the test. But with all the things we do, very hard to tell. I mean, we know anecdotally lots of stuff. There's hardly a day that goes by that Marjorie doesn't get somebody talking about something that was in our newsletter or on Facebook. She got awarded something by the Washingtonian magazine, and we went to a function the other night, and they snapped a picture, so she put it on Facebook, and she probably had 100 people. Congratulations, Marjorie, way to go! You deserve it. That sort of thing. So, very hard to be able to know for sure exactly. Even if I know exactly where it came from, underlying it might have been 800 other contacts. So I kind of look at the whole
package. How do you know viral marketing is working? So for someone who's thinking about getting involved with viral,
sure,
doing the Facebook marketing and the email marketing and the video blogging, how do you know that that's a good investment?
Well, here's a good thing for viral. Our focus is, the basis was geographic, but it's also a sphere because our geography is our sphere for the most part, and a very high percentage of it. But even if you're not doing geographic farming, viral is great for it. Because there's no, you don't have to limit it to geography. These are just people that you're helping. You're providing information, providing tips, number one. So whatever your marketing target is, maybe it's just a sphere. I know people who've done a ton of business and they don't do geographic farming, but they have a great sphere of influence and great connections. Okay, well, viral's perfect for that. The other thing that we talked about earlier is it's not just viral. Number one, yes, it's viral, and it gets you into the video, which I think look, we're looking for more ways every day. We just did a home sellers webinar. Okay, not a home seller seminar, a home seller webinar.
Interesting. Tell me about that.
We just started it. We're, kind of testing it. We really screwed some up. The first time we did it, we didn't put, we know the real estate, but we're, techno idiots probably. Okay, so we didn't push one button. It's going on at 12:30, and like at 12:30 and 30 seconds, I'm getting emails. It says it's expired. It says it's expired. I go and I said, oh God, we didn't push the button. So immediately at 12:05 or 12:35, whatever it was, there was an apology email. We're idiots. Here's a link. Watch it whenever you want. So we made mistakes, but part of it was, a lot of the things that we do comes out of how to solve a problem for us, a business problem for us or our clients. Okay, well, Marjorie goes on a listing presentation. It's, God, Bill, I got to find a way to shorten it. Okay, I got to find a way not to get into this and to get into that. And so we came up with the idea of, well, what if we did a home seller webinar that covered lots of things that you would not now have to cover in a listing presentation. And so we sort of came up with, a number of years ago, we wrote a chapter in a book with Brian Tracy. And the way we came up with what I was going to cover was, I thought about, okay, all the objections we get from sellers. And that's how we came up with 7 parts of that chapter. Okay, they fight you on price. They fight you on staging. They fight you on all kinds of things. Some were tips and some were things that we have to convince them of. And so it was kind of it sort of prepositions. We're trying to kind of train the sellers in advance. So if I can cover some of these things educationally.
Sure.
Okay, in the living room, it's confrontationally. Okay, because they want to do this, and I say, no, you're an idiot. Probably, hopefully. I might say that. Marjorie usually wouldn't, but I might say that. But if I can go through and talk to them about pricing strategies and why we don't overprice. Actually, in our market, we underprice slightly because then that's how we'll get them more money. And again, in those chapters, it wasn't a tip. It was a story, and it was an example of exactly that. So it would be, it was on staging. We'd, go through a story if someone was fighting us on it. Actually, the woman who did the first video for us, she took most of Marjorie's advice, and it got down to she loved the peach color in her kitchen. And Marjorie said, well, you don't have to repaint it, but it could probably cost you 50 grand. She said, never mind, I'll get George to paint it tomorrow. And she's the one who made an extra $81,000 and, in a few minutes. So, but we thought, okay, well, let's put that into a format. So if someone's thinking of selling, that they can sort of walk through it. So the other thing is now I can cover that information to more than one person at a time. Again, it's leverage. And I can record it. And, I think somebody went and looked at it. We don't know if they'll do anything or not. We got to do follow up with them. But so so that's something that we're working on. We're trying to refine it a little bit, try to make note of all the places we've screwed up. And then actually that's something we'll be developing a course that we'll probably release probably in September on how to do that for agents. Okay, how to do that. Here's the structure.
Nice.
Here's the game plan. Here's how you can do it. Maybe we need to partner with you on that for them being able to execute it.
Well, we can help you. Let me show the audience something really quick. One of our clients, Chris Lindahl, is a top agent in the Twin Cities, and he owns sellerworkshop.com, and he runs a lot of ads to get people to his workshops he does all over the city on how to sell your home.
Right.
And this is kind of the copy that he uses, which can be some of the copy you use for your webinar.
Right.
On why someone would attend.
Right.
Something that kind of help you out a little bit there.
Yeah. So that's the sort of thing that, we're looking for, how we can do that. And then we take that and say, well, maybe there are also ways to chunk that down. Okay. Maybe it's something that we use on Facebook or emails or whatever that's actually a lead magnet, a portion of it. There are also other applications. Maybe something Marjorie would have done routinely, and she does it every time she lists a property. Okay. Maybe it's a seller tutorial on, how to get your house ready for the open house and then get the hell out. That sort of thing. So we actually are looking at even kind of administratively how we can create sort of mini tutorials that it's the same message every time. That, you know, we can get out to the sellers. Okay, here it's, you know, it's 2 minutes long. Do this, do this, do this. You know, do this, and get out. It could be, here's what to expect next week when you hear from my marketing person, or whatever it is, or here's some tips on how to write the story about living in your house that we can use in your marketing, things like that. So we're looking at how else can we use video, which people seem to really respond to.
This is great, Bill. Well, let's sum up for the audience today, and then I'm going to kind of do a little summary of what we learned.
Okay.
When it comes to viral marketing specifically, why should someone do this?
Okay.
Who's it for?
Okay.
Speak to that person. What do they need to get results?
Well, yeah, here's what I would say, and it's how we look at our training business. You know, there are agents in our business who are really successful, but they're always chasing the next deal. They're not doing the things that, you know, Marjorie and I make the time to do. So they're agents who are really who are working hard and not getting any results. And then they're brand new agents who don't know what to do. Well, I think Vyral and any good marketing program works for all of those people. They all need something. The power of video, I mean, I'm not in that industry, but everything I read, I look at, I talk to people in different industries. Okay, if there's one thing, I mean, we're looking at more ways. Can I create a habit for Marjorie to use Facebook Live? Okay, that's video. You know, she just listed a house and she's walking out the door and she's exhausted, but does she click on her phone and say, God, just want to let everybody know about this house I just listed. It's not ready to go on the market yet. But, you know, gee, if it's something you might be interested in and you can see through the packing boxes and whatever, let me know. Okay, just the power of video, I think, is going to be the hottest thing in our marketplace. And it's not necessarily the slick stuff. As I said, we really kind of tried to, I want to say dumb down, but make it more like a home movie when we have a seller go through it, not a big splashy production. So I think that to be able to use video is an enormous thing. And what it did for us is it created a discipline of doing it. Okay, twice a month. It's calendared for my whole year. Okay, Marjorie can do a million things, but it's on her calendar and it's something that she shows up for. Now we've got a little bit of a challenge because we're doing a variation of it, but there was a discipline of the video and of getting video out there. And it's not just the video, because if someone's struggling with marketing, okay, well, I do one video. It's my postcard. It's my newsletter. It's this. It's that. You can use it a million different ways. So if I'm going to start with one thing, using Vyral is one of the best things you could do, because you can apply it and repurpose it across almost any platform that you want. Okay, and it's easy. Okay, writing is hard. You know, Marjorie doesn't write anything. If we have something to write, I write it. Okay, writing's hard. Talking's easy relative to that. So if I can talk it, your writers write it, a recount of it. Now I've got something. I don't have to think. Okay, I don't have to think. That's why I do it. I'm lazy. I enjoy writing to a point, but to have that burden off of me, and now I've got something I can use and repurpose in newspapers, in postcards, in newsletters, in other venues, that's tremendously powerful. Again, I look for leverage. If I can do one thing once and use it 8 different ways, that's an enormous win. You know, most of the people, our business, Marjorie has an unfair advantage. It's me. I don't have to spend my time on the street. I just look for things like you guys to see, okay, what else can we do? What can we
nice
add?
She has someone like you supporting her.
What can we take away? Okay, what do we need to do? So, but most agents, look, would Marjorie have Vyral if I weren't around? Probably not, because she wouldn't have had the time to stop and think about it and do it. So if you're an agent and you don't have somebody, doesn't have to be me, but somebody like me, which hardly anybody does, that, okay, how do I get content out? Yeah, my postcards aren't going out because I'm too busy. Okay, my newsletter's not going out because it's too busy. Well, if I can automate it, as a matter of fact, one of the things that we're doing is in our training business, when you hit me in the face with, okay, well, Bill, but what are the results? Something we're getting ready to launch right now is we want to make that training, we're chunking it down to make it more effective into a 4-week class with a weekly implementation call. And what we're also adding, one of the things we talk about is marketing. And so what we're putting into it is a done-for-you monthly marketing program that's on autopilot that'll probably take an agent 30 minutes a month to implement. So I know agents don't have the time. They're out meeting with people, showing they're busy. So that's where most marketing breaks down. So with you, it gave us a discipline for this part of our business, but it also created huge leverage of content. I mean, you almost don't have to do anything else. If you do 2 of these a month, that's probably enough for everything you're going to do.
Because what you did is you took it and you spend it in all the other things.
Yeah. You may not have to do anything. You do these 2, that's probably your content for the month in whatever platform you choose. So, yeah, that's terrific.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time today, my friend.
Okay.
I enjoyed it, Frank. Technology laid down. Again, let's just go over a few key takeaways here.
Okay.
Right. Number 1, Bill's in DC, super competitive. Lots of agents, lots of entrenched agents. He said, the hell with that. We're going to dominate this very small niche area. What was the area called again, Bill?
It's Cleveland Park. And when we chose to do it, our business was just getting off the ground when 2008 happened. And that to us was one of the best things that probably could have happened to our business because everybody else went to hide. And we said, okay. Fortunately, we were in Washington, D.C. We still had a market. Some parts of the country didn't have a market.
Well, you went in the MLS like I was going to share next, and you saw there's actually real estate trading.
Yeah. So there were still transactions done. So, sort of damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead.
Mm-hmm. And Bill knows what he's talking about. 1.5 million GCI, about where he's at. He picked a niche. He tells, he started with direct mail 2-3 times a month, maybe 3 times at the beginning to get going. By telling personal stories about relating with you as a person and sharing recent home sale in the area. The key is consistency, being in front of that target market all the time. Over time, he built an email list of about 1,200, built his farm out to about 5,000, cost him about $1 a piece to mail something out. But he takes the videos that he creates with Vyral and repurposes them into a written advertorial in the community paper. He spins it and puts it into a personal newsletter. I mean, all this content is just being dominated into that area. Bill, one of the things, if you're interested in, we have a premium Facebook advertising service. It's a little extra money for clients, but the first month is free for clients. Want to try it out? I would recommend taking your videos and boosting them and being in front of a 2 to 3 mile radius around your area all the time. So now they're not only getting direct mail and getting other stuff. Let's make sure they see you all the time on YouTube and Facebook. How does that sound? Like some digital farming. Okay, you want to talk to Leah in my office for that.
Leah?
Yeah, the first month we'll do it, no management charge for it to test it out. Okay. And yeah, content creator. So Bill, thank you so much. And if you too are looking to get involved with something like this, reach out to us. Viralmarketing.com, getvyral.com. We execute all this for you, majority of it. But it all starts with the marketing plan. You have to agree with the marketing plan first, which is what Bill's following. And if you go to getvyral.com, vyral.com, you can get a copy of the official video marketing plan that we recommend to do what Bill's doing, essentially, by building and working and dominating a database. So Bill, thank you so much for your time, my friend. We'll end the interview here, and thank you all so much for attending and learning how to increase your business.